Dozens of people are reported dead in the wake of ferry accident in Bangladesh. Efforts to rescue the passengers, numbering 200, were hampered by strong currents. For more on that and other stories around the world, we turn to the news roundup by CFI.
Turkish mine that collapsed, killing at least 284 miners last Tuesday, has denied any negligence. According to Soma Holding, Turkey's worst ever mining disaster was caused by an unexplained build-up of heat that caused the explosion. There are still 18 miners trapped inside the mine. The disaster has provoked anti-government protests because of a lack of safety standards and outrage as Prime Minister Erdogan's advisor was caught violently kicking a protester in Soma. In Bangladesh, dozens of people are reported killed in a ferry disaster on the Meghna River. The ferry capsized and sank during a storm southeast of the capital Dhaka. 200 people were aboard the ferry when it went down. These accidents are common in Bangladesh's rivers, with scores of people killed every year due to overcrowding. According to local police, dozens of people managed to swim to safety, but rescue efforts were hampered by strong currents and the depth of the water. In Syria, Islamist rebels detonated explosives in an army base in Wadi Dif, one of the Syrian regime's last remaining strongholds in the Idlib province. The rebels dug an 860-meter-long tunnel and packed it with explosives. Dozens of people are reported killed. The Islamic Front, a rebel coalition, claimed responsibility for the attack, as well as an earlier explosives attack under the famous Carlton Hotel in Aleppo. Neighbours Bosnia and Serbia have declared a state of emergency in response to the worst flooding since records began 120 years ago. Thousands of people have had to be rescued in both countries. Bosnia and Serbia are appealing for international assistance. Torrential rains have caused what the president of Serbia described as the greatest flooding disaster ever in the region.
The World Cup may be billed as the biggest sporting event in the world, but this summer's tournament in Brazil appears to be a totally different ballgame. For hundreds of Brazilians, the event is more about their country selling its image internationally. Protesters in Rio and Sao Paulo condemned the billions of dollars being injected into stadiums at the expense of basic services. CFI gives us these details.
To host the Football World Cup this summer, huge protests broke out Thursday in host cities Rio de Janeiro and Sao Paulo. The main complaint is the vast sums of public money spent on the event while basic services are ignored.
We've been asking the question, who is this World Cup for? And the time has come for us to give the answer. This World Cup is not for the majority of the Brazilian people. We are against this type of event that excludes the population.
The only benefits that an event like this could bring would be the consolidation of public services, but the organizers of the World Cup have no interest in that.
The anger is targeted at FIFA, the event organizer, as well as the Brazilian government, which protesters say is more concerned about its international image than its citizens. Among the protesters were members of the homeless workers movement, which marched toward Sao Paulo's Itaquerão Stadium, which has cost a reported $450 million.
The problem is not the stadium, but the fact that so much was spent on building the stadium, which has pushed up the rent in the area. Meanwhile, there are no health services here. We don't have a basic infirmary or a hospital.
Various incidents broke out during the evening. Aerial images showed roadblocks and looting. The government says it is ready for the World Cup despite the protest movement. Brazilian police have been given special training by the FBI and U.S. police, especially for the event. Some 170,000 police officers and 30,000 military personnel are expected to be deployed throughout the country to ensure security during the games.
We now take our second break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Come to our aid and help develop basketball. That is the plea from GBA's President Mohamed Njai. The Gambia basketball president made these remarks at the team's push to gain more points in time for the start of the playoffs. Our Babukar Senghor was at the Independence Stadium and he tells us more about the midweek games.
Trust Bank fans were delirious with joy after their team secured a hard-fought victory over Access Bank to win the prestigious late Governor Famara Jara Trophy. The Interbanks football tournament is intended to promote a healthy working relationship amongst workers in the banking sector, as well as remember the late Famara Jara, former governor of the Central Bank of the Gambia.
I think to have such a tournament to remember Famara Jata in terms of what he has contributed to the development of this economy is not a small thing at all. But we are very proud, as bankers, as citizens of this country, to be involved in this tournament.
After several weeks of intense competition among the different banks in the country, Trust Bank and Access Bank reached the final to contest the giant trophy called the Governor's Trophy. With most of their time spent on financial dealings, this was a rare moment for the bankers to come together, interact and have fun. Supporters of the two banks came out in full force to cheer up their respective teams. Trust Bank edged past Sky Bank with a 4-2 penalty shootout win to set up a meeting with Access Bank, who defeated Zenith Bank 2-1 in the semi-finals. The governor of Central Bank, Amadou Koli, set the ball rolling. Trust Bank, seen in blue with yellow strips, got the game underway, and they nearly scored in the first minute of play from their first attack when Kausu Conte's dipping volley hit the upper side of the crossbar. Access survived an early scare. Trust Bank took the lead in the 31st minute from a serious goalkeeping howler by Abdullahi Babu. Kausu Sane's speculative shot on goal easily slipped through the goalkeeper's hands. Access Bank responded well after the break, and we are back on level terms within a minute inside the second period. Ibrahim S. Jallo's cross was tapped in from a close range by Michael Toure to level the score at 1-1. A perfect start to the second half by Access Bank, but with no further goals to report. The two sides were left to settle matters in a post-match penalty kicks, a nail-biting moment for both fans. Trust Bank ended up winning by 5-4 in a dramatic shootout. Access Bank will have themselves to blame after allowing Trust Bank to come from 2-0 down to win. It was another satisfactory tournament from the organizers' point of view, with the championship uniting the bankers towards a common goal.
This year has been, very interesting, very thrilling indeed, and highly competitive, particularly the group in which the two teams belong. That is Access Bank and Trust Bank indeed. This is a meeting of two giants, two tough teams. So I'm not surprised that it was a thrilling encounter. But the tournament overall has been great indeed.
For Trust Bank, they were crowned champions, lifting the giant Governor Jata's trophy, and a huge celebrations followed afterwards. Mohamed Jallo, Grts Sports.
And before we take leave of you, a quick reminder of the day's top stories. President Jammeh has conferred national honors on several diasporans at the 2014 Roots African Banquet graced by Vice President Jai Sedi. The 27-year-old Sudanese woman dragged to court for apostasy has been handed down the death sentence by a court in Khartoum. And struggling to contain a different ball game, the violent clashes erupted in Brazil as angry protesters in the South American country decried the colossal sums of money their government committed to next month's World Cup at the expense of basic social services. That was all in this edition of the news. Thanks for the pleasure of your company. Do stay with us.